Crouch. Bind. Set.
Joe presents the House of Rugby, together with Guinness.
Hello, Dream Team. Welcome to House of Rugby, a new show brought to you by Joe. Together with our friends at Guinness, we have made it to episode 2, which I think in itself is an achievement. Many thanks to all of you who listened last week and for some very generous feedback as well. Back once again, like the Renegade Master for week 2. It is a very warm welcome to Mr. James Haskell. What have you learnt this week?
Oh, I'm surprised I'm back.
Yes, we're surprised too.
We came number 2 in some sort of chart, didn't we?
And now we want to kick on.
Behind Peter Crouch. Couldn't believe that. It's the only time I'd ever be behind Peter Crouch.
Have you had a good week?
I have actually had a good week. It's been intense. Obviously trying to do this gym stuff, a lot of training with the Saints, trying to get my ankle right at the moment.
Yeah.
Just generally being lad across the board. Working on a new mix, actually, DJ mix. So good you called me the Renegade Master.
Good. Nice little back ref to past glories. You're obviously bringing the brawn again this week. The brains and the brawn alongside. It is none other than Mr. Nick Kennedy, a hero of London Irish, Geelong Quins in England as well. How is life with you at the moment?
Good, thank you. Very good.
What's keeping you busy?
I'm currently working for Saracens, doing some rugby
the dark
consultancy
side.
for them, and doing some commentary on the weekends as well, which really enjoying.
Yeah. What are you doing with Saracens? Recruitment? And keeping eyes
recruitment and a few other little projects as well.
So, do you keep you sweet or?
Love
Saints, but,
Business card in top pocket. And memories of playing alongside this man. It was lovely when you two came together just before we started recording, and Has said that he ended your England career.
Yeah. The funny thing about that is everyone knows he's terrible at the line-out, and he still claims that I should have listened to him.
Right.
In the story.
Yeah. So basically, we were playing against Ireland. It was Kendo versus Paul O'Connell. Kendo is an absolute line-out nose. He knows everything, analyses everything. He was a great man, very efficient in the air. And against Paul O'Connell would come in, 3-step lob in the line out, and Kendo was going to go up against him. Now, I kept saying to Kendo, you need to take an extra step. He wasn't having any of it. We lifted him where he was going. The ball sailed over his hands into Paul O'Connell's hands time after time. He was never seen again. And every time I told him, just take one more step, he's just lift me properly. And he blames me for not lifting him properly for the reason that his career faded into obscurity.
Simple explanation, yeah.
Well, if you listen to me, you'd still be playing for England now.
God help us all. Bitter? Not much.
He's not bitter.
I never listened to him at all, and I think he just wanted to go off and try and smash someone with his face or his shoulder every Eastern tackle, and he didn't really care about the line-out stuff.
But I did try and help
me.
I did give him advice, but you take a horse to water, you can't make it drink.
I quite like the fact you also said you checked back in your last WhatsApp message to him was...
That was 2014. So since I got my new phone, I sent him, it was 5-man line out, the ball, his arms go up super slow, ball goes straight through the middle. And I just texted him, I just started coaching then, I texted him a little coaching advice, look up with your head, don't just look straight forward.
Did you respond?
No.
He was a bit angry, but then turned it around and went, oh yes, actually, thank you for the coaching.
Thank you for your advice. Nick Kennedy, you should have listened to me. Should have listened to me. Notes again.
Yes, I know, very thick notepad this week. Still nothing.
What have I got no notes?
Would you answer the question? Why have you got no notes?
I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to be. I don't know why I'm here half the time. Honestly, I think it's just to bring amusement levels.
Yes, if you could up those as well, that would be very much appreciated. Nick, great to have you with us. We've got Kendo and Hask. It's like a 1970s cop duo.
You always said something else.
We'll keep it at cop duo.
That would have been horrible.
We're going to talk about a lot more than just lineouts this week. So we're going to very quickly skip through what we're going to cover on the show this week. We're going to be taking a look at Danny Cipriani's red card, another 10 having a tough week, and the new tackling laws surrounding that. We'll also be looking back at the Champions Cup round 2 now that we're a couple of games in. We'll look forward to November and the announcement as well that's been made this week about in-season breaks. And in our Perfect Pause segment, we'll be putting Hask's drawing skills to the test. We've had to find a slightly simpler task.
How am I supposed to draw with hands like this? Look at them fingers.
Picasso.
Oh, that's horrible, that.
Mangled fingers as well. Let's start, though, with arguably the biggest talking point of the week. And it's whether he likes it or not, whatever he does, he sort of tends to be the biggest talking point of the week, Danny Cipriani.
I thought me not getting to the England squad was the biggest talking point.
Do you want to quickly pick up on that?
Is that it
now?
No one mentioned it.
There isn't a single back rower left in the country and you're still with us.
That's exactly what I thought. I thought now everyone's sort of, out of action. This is my moment.
You're saying there's a chance?
Like shadow boxing. I was like waiting by my phone and... No, it just never happened. No. So
you're like that Ron Burgundy sketch, drinking in the bar on your own, just praying that he comes back and says...
I was literally left on my own. That was it. But, it's sad. I thought it was a big talking point, was it not? Wasn't my household.
Sure many
Yeah.
people noticed. But I mean, genuinely,
Nobody noticed.
No,
Like, literally nobody noticed. But it's fine. I'm not bitter, and it's all good.
okay. We'll watch this space. Fingers crossed.
Nah,
you never quite know.
You never quite know. I mean, I've got a few. I'm going to basically
Never say never.
I'm going to have to blow up the bus, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And then even a couple of ex-Wasp players were just sending me messages saying they've got their boots ready, dusting off. I think Joe Worsley thinks he's going to make a comeback before I do.
Quite possible.
Any feedback at all?
Yeah, be less rubbish, Kendo.
Same feedback as yours.
No, we did have a chat. It was all good.
This week?
Yeah, I had a chat.
Okay.
He had my number.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. No, we just had a good chat. I just need to play more games and play better.
Really?
So I was like, okay.
So the door's not shut then?
No, not sure. Sort of, I got my foot in it and head in it.
Yeah.
And
You're peering through the keyhole.
he's
rather
trying to
than-
slam it, and I'm asking him to take the latch off it, but it's embarrassing. It would be like a home raid.
Yeah. Well, watch this space. Never say never. Back to Danny Cipriani, though. Sympathy for the tackle? Or in this day and age, knowing what the new directives are, you just cannot afford to be making contact with the head?
I think it's a tough one. I think all these kind of decisions are hard. Obviously, there's clear directives if you make contact with the head, and I've actually watched it back, and I think Danny was almost kind of backpedaling a little bit, and then tackle avoidance more so than trying to make a tackle.
A soak tackle, I think.
Yeah, and I think he just left his arm in the way, and I think actually where we used to get coached at Wasps, or where the 10s got coached at Wasps with Sean Edwards, where Alex King used to play, was if the 10 came up and put pressure, put a shoulder on, and someone else finished the tackle, that was not seen as a missed tackle. And I think Danny's come up there, gone to finish the tackle, the guy's kind of ducked, and he's made contact with the head, and unfortunately the rules are the rules. Danny's favourite tackle is the Cumberland throw that Sean Edwards taught him.
Which is?
It's basically where I think you just jump on the player's back. He did it to Alessandro Tuolangi in that Premiership final, where Danny was on fire before he made his kind of England debut, and it was Cumberland throw. You just have Sean Edwards going, Danny met Cumberland throw. Right. And honestly, Tuolangi was ready to score, and Danny Cumberland throwed him.
That was a European final, wasn't it?
Yeah, European final.
Yeah.
And stick to the Cumberland throw, Danny, is all I'd say.
It wasn't a Cumberland throw this time around. As somebody who's sort of been a director of rugby, I'd love to know what you would be doing to try and get the players to take the message on board, because we are seeing it's not just Danny Cipriani, it's Jerome Kaino the week before. It seems to be a real problem in the game right now.
Yeah.
How would you be dealing with it at the top?
I think it's really, really difficult for the players. I think they've gone so far one end with any sort of contact with the head, red, that it will come back a little bit. But I'm fully in support of it.
Yeah.
Fully in support of looking after the players' welfare and making sure they don't get lots of concussions and really struggle later down the line. Some of the people on Twitter that are complaining about it are the sort of old beaten up players that probably are a bit down because they've had too many concussions, and they need to support the science behind it. Ross Tucker, I've been to a couple of his conferences. He's a very bright man, and they're putting a lot of work in behind the scenes, looking at the stats, looking at the science. So I'm fully in support of it. However, I do have sympathy for the players because it's tough.
Yeah.
I think where they need to go with it is for the referees to have some empathy, and almost like in football, is it ball to hand or hand to ball? If the guys are ducking and the carrier is just going in like that because you want to carry hard, you want to carry low, and sometimes it is the carrier's fault and there's nothing the defender can do. So because they've got so much time at the top end of the game, they can go to the video.
Yeah.
I think next season there needs to be some sort of empathy with what has the carrier done, what was the intent of the tackler, and there needs to be a little bit of grey there as well.
Yeah.
I think the slow motion stuff is the killer as well, just because I agree exactly with what Kendo's saying. I think that as a player, in tackling low is ultimately the answer. I think some of the best tacklers in the world are the guys that go low. I mentioned at the top of the show was Joe Worsley. For me, he was the best tackler in the world I've ever seen. His ability to kind of chop tackle, I think was incredible, and I think every kid and everyone should be encouraged to do that. Obviously, sometimes as a second man coming into a tackle, your job is to lock up the ball. Your job is to slow that ball down. If you can't have two players going low. That's where you're going to make a bit of contact with the head. I'm concerned sometimes when a player bends over to come low, and there's some really innuendos in that sentence.
Keep it clean. Keep it clean.
Sorry. As they come into tackle, and I put my arm to swing onto the ball, catch them on the head. That's technically a red, but there's nothing you can do about it because there isn't anything else to hit. They're running lower. You're trying to get lower. Someone's already gone low. I think the empathy thing is a massive thing, and I think there's got to be some common sense.
And the other thing with it is you need to do everything in your control. At the moment, it is difficult because you need to shut the offload down too. And lots of guys are now offloading higher and round the back. And so you do need to shut the offload down. But as a director of rugby or a coach, what you can do with the players is coach the technique. So really work on those low chops.
Yes.
Work on their range of movement. Maybe a bit less gym, a bit more flexibility, a bit more yoga, a bit of Pilates. So you're comfortable in those lower positions.
Yeah.
And it's tough for the taller man, definitely. I'm glad I'm not playing now because not that I ever go around smacking people in the head, but you're so worried as a player that you're going to let your team down just with one little slip up or one little accident.
Yeah. You say you didn't run around smacking people in the head. You had something very different to say.
Yeah, no.
The nicest smile in the game, Mr. Nick Kennedy. But
Kendo was one of those guys that had one of the loveliest people you'll ever meet off the field. Yeah, he used to roll around this naughty London Irish gang of Dylan Armitage, Dec Danaher, himself, Big Bob KC, Mapasua.
A mob.
Yeah, just like any bit of aggro, he'd be right in it, like choking people out with your shirt, all sorts. Then off the game, he'd be like, yeah, hi, Haskell. Really good to see you, mate.
was that you to a T, or was that what London Irish made you?
I'm very passionate playing against Hask because Watts always used to beat us, and they were always, they're the best team in Europe, and they did always used to beat London Irish. They were way ahead of us from a strength and conditioning point of view. This was a long time ago when Hask just started, and they just bullied us, and they just carried round the corner. Real simple game plan. We just went backwards all the time, and I think each year I just got angrier and angrier that we couldn't stop it.
You had a good team though back in the day, didn't you?
Yeah.
You got to a European semi-final, didn't you?
Yeah. We just lost to Toulouse in that one. Yeah.
Glory days. Glory days. Just want to pick up, I suppose, to go back onto the clarity from a player's perspective. It's obviously asked Nick the question about as a director of rugby, but there was a really interesting quote from Omar Hassanein, who's the chief executive of the International Rugby Players, who came out and said the players are baffled by the tackle laws at the moment. And that is, he thinks, a really big problem because in the Southern Hemisphere they're being told one thing, up here they're being told almost different things per competition. And there was a very clear directive going into Europe around contact with the head, which perhaps hasn't been the case in the Premiership. As a player, a current player, is this made aware to you going into different competitions? And is this something that is highlighted almost in the classroom?
Am I baffled by rugby? Yes.
More baffled than normal?
Every day. If you remember that clip, I had to ask the referee what a ruck was.
Yes, that's
that
very
wasn't
true.
what I was doing either. And I owe that French referee some amazing chat back, but I held myself back because I didn't want to get red carded.
Yeah.
But he said...
Humiliated.
He said something like, I'm not your coach.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm not the referee, but I could have done a better job than you, but I thought that would have been a yellow card.
Yeah.
Not that I've been simmering over that. No,
It's good. It's like
good you thought
after the
about it.
event. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say to
like
him.
Alan Partridge. Needless to say, I had the last laugh. I've definitely bounced back from that.
Yeah.
No, I think the thing with the...
Can you remember the question?
Yeah, of course I can. That's where my mind works. I've got things going on.
Keep grilling.
I think... we get people coming into the clubs, and giving presentations on the new laws in terms of what bits and pieces referees are looking for. Sometimes we get referees in, certainly in Northampton, we had a referee come in middle of pre-season, explain some of the rule changes, explain what they were looking at. In terms of actually, going through a class on what's expected and what's not, no. And I think they're always fiddling with the laws every season in some form, and certainly as a player I've been involved, I've never had any input into it, I've never been asked about it, we suddenly just get sort of presented it, so I don't know who comes up with this stuff and who decides to do it. I think that, yes, I think as far as I'm concerned, the rule is that if you make any kind of head contact with intent or with your shoulder or whatever, that's going to be a red card. Below the shoulder is where you should be tackling. I just think, again, I said it earlier, but I went off on a tangent, shock, was about the replay stuff. I just think that...
Full speed replays only.
Well, I just think that you've got to understand that, I've sat through some sighting bits and pieces myself. I unfortunately caught Jamie Roberts.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. That was in Europe last year.
They're still
wasn't
trying
it?
to find his head. It's somewhere down the A16 or something like that when I hit it. I don't know what I was thinking. I literally thought I was going low.
Did you think you'd made a good tackle in that incident?
Yeah, but only because I'd run so fast, probably the fastest I've ever run in my life, and I just didn't drop. You talk about the height, mobility, obviously built like the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz. I ran out of oil, so I thought I'd got an unbelievable shot. It was only when I spun around and saw that I'd hurt him, I was like, oh my god. A, because I never want to hurt a player. B, because I know that Jamie is a good man, and C, I was like, right, well, I'm in trouble here. But I didn't know where I'd hit him. I obviously assumed because I knocked him out that I must have got him around the head, but I didn't feel it. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
It was only on the replay that I see it, and I was mortified.
Did you know red instantly when you saw the replay?
I thought, to be honest with you, because as he kind of passed the ball, he sunk a little bit, and I thought I just caught him below, but they said it was with intent and everything else, and because they replay it so slowly, you see that. So when I went through the citing commission, they rewind it and they ask bizarre things. You say things like, "Oh, I'm going to make a hit," and they say things like, "Well, show me in the dictionary where it says make a hit." You're like, okay. In rugby terminology, it's make a tackle, not make a hit. Because hit sounds like you want to hurt someone. When you watch it slow motion, it did look terrible. And I think the understanding was I would never intend to hit someone. I would never intend to get red carded.
Yeah.
Well, that would be madness. You'd have to be the stupidest person on earth to get red carded. And I just think that we have to understand that when people are watching it back and analysing it, especially on TV, it looks brutal and it takes all of the player's intent out of it because you just see outcome. There's no hold on a minute, this guy's made a mistake here. And I appreciate you've got to focus on player safety. I appreciate the rules are clear. But in terms of people actually breaking the whole situation down to us, no, I don't think that's happened. I don't think we have any misunderstanding about what's going on. But if there's some sort of thing we're all missing, then maybe they should talk to us.
It's interesting, just to pick up on a couple of other bits of social media. Billy Vunipola watched the game and he labelled the red cards soft. He said another game ruined. Brian Moore wrote in his Telegraph article, he said the game has a legal and a moral duty to deal with high tackling. So ex-player, current player. But at the sort of the mention of the red card, everyone is talking about games being ruined by people being sent off. Almost to pick up on the point you were making earlier, is this just a period that we have to, almost like the tip tackle, where it was a real issue for a while, everyone who tip tackle got sent off, and you don't actually see many tip tackles in the game anymore. Is this a period the game has to go through in order to get better safety?
Yes, yeah, definitely. I think that the high ball, do you remember, was it last season or maybe the season before, anyone that jumped, you touched them at all, then you're getting red carded. And now you don't see many people getting taken out in the air, do you?
No.
And it did ruin a few games early on, and it is poor for the guys that have paid the money to go and see it, terrible for the team, terrible for the guy who's done it. But it is nearly stamped out now in the game, and they are landing a lot safer, and the defending players are looking after them a lot more. So, yeah, look, I think this year nothing's going to change. Everyone has to just get on with it and do their best to go lower. There's no point in complaining now. I think offer some constructive ideas. I saw I think Benny Kay wrote about having like an orange card or a blue card.
There's a black card in GAA where if it's unintentional, you are allowed to be subbed off, but you can bring a replacement on. Yeah, I think I'm right in saying that.
Don't look at me for rugby stuff.
But I like that.
Yeah.
So a black card where Danny Cipriani has to go off for 10 minutes, but then he can't join the field again. So you still get 10 minutes with 14 men, and then someone else has to come on.
Yeah.
Because there are so many areas of grey around this, because of the ball carrier ducking his head, then I think another punishment would be good.
Yeah.
But I think, so there's no point in complaining. It is the way it is this year. Let's come up with something, and then next season we can move forward with something a little bit more efficient.
And just on the inconsistencies, which a lot of people seem to be highlighting in the world and social media. You know, Kane gets a yellow card, but then a 5-week retrospective ban. Cipriani gets a red card and is waiting to find out his fate. As a player, are you frustrated by the inconsistencies, or is it just part of what is a very, very complex game?
I think it's part of a very complex game. I think that people who are trying to eradicate injury and concussion from rugby are on a hiding to nothing. It's going to happen. Yeah. It's happening more. I think. When we played against Claremont a couple of weeks ago, the backs were as big as the forwards. Most teams have now got that is the case. Players are getting bigger, players are getting fitter, stronger, lasting full 80. Props are playing full 80 minutes. And then if they don't, you've got kind of fresh legs coming on. There's a lot of research around the introduction of fresh players. I mean, back in the day, when Brian Moore played, people would get tired and it would drop off. You wouldn't make substitutions and the intensity would stop. Now the intensity is through 80 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think with a lot of these bits and pieces, I just think you've got to have that kind of bit of common sense about what's being done. And I just think that it's a very complicated game, and I just think that when people comment on social media, that's not constructive. We didn't have that. I just wouldn't worry about that. Everyone's got an opinion about everything on social media, and I just think you've got to eradicate that. You've got to make sure that there's an informed body who understand what's going on, the players understand what's going on, and that's it. And don't worry about trial by social media, because the world is going down the pan via social media, and I just don't think it's worth it.
Are you driving it down the pan?
100%.
Person on it.
Yeah, 100%. But I try to do it in a positive way. I just think, you said about it's hard for the players at the moment, but I would say it's made harder by reactions of people that are nothing to do with rugby, or people who have once played rugby 20 years ago. It's when we talked about Freddie Burns last week.
Yeah. But the point of social media is that anyone's able to join the conversation.
Well, I know, but that's the it should. Yeah, but the problem is you've got to realise that everybody has an opinion, and some of them just aren't worth listening to. So I just think that it's a complicated game. And I think it's going to take time to work it out. I think the idea of having a different kind of card or a different sanction would be great. I just don't think that you're going to stop concussion in rugby. I just don't think you're going to stop injuries. And if that's what you're trying to do, it's very, very hard.
Try and limit it.
You can limit it, which is the most important thing. But it's never going to stop.
You're watching the House of Rugby on Joe, together with Guinness.
Let's get on to some of the more positive elements of. I was going to say positive. I want to come on to Toulon, which is far from positive. But I do want to start with Newcastle. 2 from 2. How big a surprise?
Yeah, it is a big surprise because of the teams that they're playing. They don't deserve, in my opinion, to be the bottom of the Premiership.
Yeah.
They're a very talented squad. They're very well coached. They had a fantastic year last year. And then if you look at their pool, you think, actually, there's no chance they're getting out. But to beat Toulon away was... Toulon aren't great at the moment. I'm sure we can come to that shortly. They're playing some of the worst rugby for a very, very long time. But they still have some superstars. And for Newcastle to make some changes, rest some players, go away to Toulon, who have only lost once in 24 European games there, and beat them, was an incredible result.
Yeah.
And then to still go on the beers that night and probably have quite a slow training week with hangovers, and then back it up against Montpellier, who do have some injuries, but their squad is worth 4 times more than that Newcastle squad that were out there.
Yeah.
They've got some world-class talent on an absolute fortune. And to beat them in the manner in which they did, to go 8 minutes of extra time, 38 phases, just picking and going. They were going nowhere for 6-7 minutes, and they just kept working, and that belief and that confidence that they were going to do it just shows that Dave Wilder, Dean Richards, I think, are doing an incredible job up there, and I loved it. That was brilliant to watch.
What about Toulon? What do you make of it? Because firstly, how much did you enjoy your time at Toulon?
I loved it. I loved the rugby. It was an unbelievable place to play. It was like a football crowd, football mentality.
It's a cracking stadium, isn't it?
Yeah. The best place to play, right by the sea. And the crowd are just so passionate. It's very different to the English rugby crowds, a very family sort of environment.
Yeah.
Very nice, everyone getting on well, whereas that's as close to football as you'll get in terms of angry, passionate, chanting fans.
Yeah.
So to play in front of them was great. To play with the world-class players I got to play with was an experience of a lifetime.
Yeah.
But I did get a bit bored there.
Okay.
I was in a small little seaside town. I had a couple of businesses going on in London, and then you sort of put everything on the back foot to go there.
Yeah.
So that's why I cut it short and came home to Harlequins early in my contract. But it was, look, if I could turn back time, I probably would have stayed.
Really? Good cash money as well. What about Boujlal, though, who tweeted this week, I don't know if you saw it, a picture of Snow White, didn't he?
Well, it was a video of Snow White.
It was a video of Snow White,
yeah.
Like, a sort of metaphor, I'm cleaning the house.
Yeah, whistle while you work.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd love to know what kind of a character he is and how you think he will be handling the demise of the once great club that he's built.
Well, he's handling it by tweeting Snow White on a Sunday night after a loss.
Yeah.
I've not seen many owners or presidents react in that sort of way. But look, they've had now 4 head coaches in 3 years or potentially more.
I think if they
5.
get rid of Collazo, it'll be 6 in 26 months.
Okay, there you go. You got the
Did a
stats.
research before coming in.
You got
So
the stats,
keen
but look, you need continuity if you want to be successful. So he has to have a look at himself with that.
Yeah.
Potentially, did he? Bernard Laporte was great. He was so experienced, such a good leader.
Yeah.
And I don't think they replaced him well. They replaced him with someone with no experience. And then the axe came in because Boujlal's spending all that money. He wants success.
Yeah.
It's not acceptable to be their 12th at the moment, top 14. That is not acceptable for Toulon with the players that they have, with now the reputation they have. So then he sacked, was it Mike Ford next?
Yeah.
Cockerell
came
then
in.
left.
Galtier,
and now Collazo. And Collazo is so far had the worst results out of all of them.
Yeah.
I think Clauso did a very good job at La Rochelle. I think he needs time. I think it's difficult for him. He's got 2 young coaches alongside him, in Lobe and Tilas Board. So it's their first coaching gigs.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult place to learn at the sharp end in Europe, playing in those big games, playing in the top 14.
Yeah.
So maybe he needs to add a little something. But looking at Boujellel's tweet, how long has everyone got if he's talking about cleaning house on a Sunday night?
Yeah, you wonder if he might go back to Richard Cockrell, who's doing a brilliant job now with Edinburgh, and obviously a fantastic result for Edinburgh over Toulon. There's a great comment from Cockrell this week where he said he's trying to instill in his team English arrogance in an Edinburgh outfit. I'm looking at you.
I know. I don't know why you're looking at me. I don't know anyone who's English and arrogant.
No, 1 or 2. What do you make of the job that he has done with Edinburgh? I mean, because not only a fantastic result, but they're playing some brilliant rugby at the moment as well.
Yeah, I think with any of these sides, I've never experienced, Cockrell in terms of coaching me. I know what the lads at Leicester spoke about him and what his kind of reputation preceding him. I think they've got a lot of flair there, but I think sometimes that physical edge and that kind of little bit of abrasiveness can tie that all together. I think in contrast to kind of Toulon, where you don't have that organisation, you don't have that discipline, where you've got lots of star players, but from the top, that's where the standard is set, and it's all a bit all over the place. Hence, coaching, tweeting Snow White in bits and pieces. That has everyone on edge. I think with Cock is very clear about what he was doing and how he's doing it. I think they're playing some great rugby, and I think he brings that abrasiveness. Obviously his kind of heritage at Leicester. That those golden years where they used to win everything. That kind of to see what a job and that team did. All that abrasiveness and character have always followed them everywhere they've gone, even if they haven't necessarily had the personnel. So it's kind of ingrained into them, and I think that kind of attitude is, is obviously working real well for them.
Have you ever compared notes with Richard Cockrell?
I've spoken about a couple of players that we were looking to sign and looking to borrow.
Very reasonable.
Lovely bloke. We played against them last year, and we had a good chat before the game. Actually, I went to meet him as a player. And they looked to sign me a while ago, and I really liked him from then. It was probably 2012 or something. And I've got a lot of time for him. His record speaks for itself. He's won so much. Yeah. He's got such good experience, and now he's proving it again with Edinburgh.
Yeah.
We'll ask one thing. I'm always interested about the English arrogance thing. Just in having been lucky enough to play for England, and it's something that's levelled against the team a lot. It's almost. I found playing for England, we're often apologetic. Playing for England, it's the complete opposite. We're often on the receiving end of quite a lot of what I would class as arrogance, because why everyone hates England, because of 500 years of empire building, and nobody likes England, and that's something you come to terms with as a player, and everyone wants to beat you. There's nothing better than beating England, and everyone says, "Oh, arrogant English," but actually, I've seen things and little bits and pieces against teams I played for where I'm thinking, if I did that or I conducted myself in that way, it would be it would be a nightmare. That would be kind of in the newspaper kind of stuff.
Give us an example.
Well, no, I've actually got something saved up for the Six Nations, but I remember just watching a video of some people singing a song essentially assaulting England, and I was thinking, if we did that, that would be just terrible. And I just think that it's interesting. Everyone does talk about this English arrogance, where I find as an England player, we do everything not to show that, and I think it would help the team sometimes. I think it would be quite good to have that.
Isn't that what Eddie came in and instilled, though, was a bit of get your jaw jutting again and...
Yes, he did. He did, in terms of having that confidence on what we should be doing. But if you always watch, I think in my first time with him, until we won the Grand Slam, was the only time we celebrated after a game. The only time. If you watch back all the footage, everything, literally posing for the photo at the end of a thing with whatever it might be, Calcutta Cup and whatever. No smiles, business on. No celebrating, no whooping, no in your face, no nothing. And that was the same. Even in Australia, same thing. Finished the game, business. Even the Six Nations, business, until we actually got some silverware and the job was done. Yeah. So I think it's interesting with the English arrogance. I think... I remember I saw an article once, and I stupidly looked at the comments on it. It was an article about myself. Obviously, arrogance and ego got a bit the better of me, and I decided to look at it because and it said at the bottom in the comments section.
In your daily Haskell Google.
In the daily Haskell Google, yeah, when the alerts go up. And it said in the article it was about myself and English rugby. And in the bottom, the comments section, which you should never go and ever.
Why would you ever do that?
Because I realise that's where people's souls go to die. Like, people who log on to newspaper articles and set up a profile and comment, they are the worst of the worst of the worst. There's a space in hell reserved for them. And this person said, you can sum up the problem with English sport, right? Not just rugby, but English sport and English rugby in 2 words. James Haskell. And I was like, so essentially...
Did you up-like it? Sort of get
I was trying to get up because it was a name mention. But I thought I was actually blown away by that. I thought I am responsible for why everybody hates England.
We love you.
Thanks, mate.
Actually, this show it's a brilliant job at polishing Brand Hask, isn't it? The comments that were left in the first episodes on our YouTube channel and on
Stop looking at the comments. You'll have to tell him.
You
can have a little look at those. We're
on YouTube. Who knew?
Oh, the first episode.
Hopefully I'm getting royalties, yeah?
Good. We digress. Very quick bullet points to lose. I mean, we spent so long building up Leinster last week. We even picked a team that we thought might be able to try and beat them. And 6 days later,
I wasn't
they go
part of this.
to the 4-time champions. Great to see the heavyweights back up and properly firing, do you think?
Yes, definitely. To beat Leinster, you're firing all cylinders. Jitoun was class. Medard back to his best. They were absolutely class. Just the try at the end was classic Toulouse. What sort of been lacking from European rugby for a good few years now, and they look back with a bang.
A bit of breaking news before we came and recorded as well was that the round 1 game between Bath and Toulouse, there was a press release which said the result will stand, which obviously came off the back of Bruce Craig calling for a rematch.
Nice try, though, wasn't it?
It was a good effort.
It was a good effort. You got to
if Freddie
admire
had
that.
scored, I'm not sure we'd have heard the...
Possibly not, but it was a good effort. You got to admire that. I think because obviously there was the balls up with the time, wasn't there?
Well...
Or was there not?
The TV clock is not always the same as the stadium and the ref's clock. So sometimes the television clock is started afterwards. They're meant to link up. But I think in this instance, there were a couple of seconds delay. And I think EPCR have come out and said,
no chance.
Nothing doing here. Who is looking strongest in Europe right now? Pick us a winner. I'll give you £1.
Sarries?
I knew you were going to say that.
Newcastle on fire.
Who would you go with? If you had a proper £1 on?
Just because Leinster won one game away from home, I don't think that's going to derail them.
Yeah.
I think they'll still be favourites, the bookies' favourites. If you look at the Leo Cullen interview afterwards, he actually didn't mind.
Yeah.
It was almost just something to keep his squad sharp. He was the least disappointed losing DOR that I've seen.
Yeah.
And it was just a case of, that's one. We know we're better than that. And they'll rest. They'll play the internationals and they'll rest them and they'll be on top form come the next round.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing sometimes, losing games. I know it's not ideal, but actually a team that's not frightened to lose is a very dangerous side. Because I think if you go out there panicking about losing or you're scared to lose or whatever, or you're not comfortable with it, it can hold you back. And I think exactly what you said. I think Leinster are the ones to watch. I think they've got to get ruthless. I think it's a great wake-up call. Shows they're not invincible, shows areas for them to work on, and that actually makes them probably a bit more dangerous, I would have thought.
Good. I'm glad we bigged them up last week then. Let's hope they can back that up in 3 and 4. Let's move on, because I want to touch on the news that broke on Tuesday, which regards the next 3 English domestic competitions, next 3 seasons, I should say, including an in-season break. You're going on a winter holiday. Players are now limited to a maximum of 35 matches per campaign. Dubai is going to get very busy in December time, isn't it?
Ramoed, yeah.
What do you reckon to the new season structure? It sort of feels longer, but with sort of greater periods of rest. Is that about right?
It does sound a bit like smoke and mirrors, isn't it? Here's what you could have with one hand and what we're taking away with the other hand. So it is obviously going on longer. I think the rest is key. I'm a massive believer that, I think we touched on it last week a little bit, about the sports science and the fact that, people are talking about, player welfare. But actually, I believe that, we've got so much data now collected from all this GPS and all these bits and pieces that, there shouldn't be any conjecture about it. I think that people don't understand it's not necessarily the games that people are playing, it's the training, it's the amount of mandatory time you have to be in, it's the very fact that we're given 5 weeks off at the end of the season, but some clubs will try and shoehorn you into having 4 away and 1 back. There's always trying to bend the rules.
Who does that?
I couldn't possibly comment. Stop trying to get me into trouble. It's a friendly
very
show.
good at this. It's natural.
I'm still trying to play rugby. And I think that the issue is that, I think it's a great thing because once it's set in stone, you have to take the decision out of the players' hands, out of the director of rugby's hands, and make it set in stone exactly when you can and can't come in and train and when you're supposed to have rest. So I think that's a great step in the right direction, because again, people always bang on about too many games. It's not. It's the amount of training. It's how teams train. It's the fact that we've got million terabytes full of data with GPS, and I don't think it's used appropriately. I don't think that S&C guys use it as well as they could do, which will give you a big picture as to whether players are overtraining, because that's the issue. And I don't think rugby players rest enough. I don't think we do. I don't think we look after our bodies enough, just because of the demands on it, and that will start to tell, I think.
How do you think it will change, particularly the domestic game?
I think it's very interesting now because you can have less clashes. So that means your top-end English players are going to play more Premiership games, which is better for the Premiership, which is better for the TV deal that's around the corner. Because you got your stars are going to be on show more, which is good. I think it is nice to have built-in rest periods in the year where everyone has to go away and have a little break, because it does become very monotonous from when you start, depending on how well your team have done, but it can be June, and then you're all guns blazing until May.
Can you see it actually almost having an impact in the conditioning of the players as well, or not?
No, because no one's going to actually leave them to go for 2 weeks in season.
I just wondered whether if it's a longer season.
The most you'll have off is a week,
right,
and then you'll have programmes for the rest of it. So the most I'd say any S&C coach will let a player rest in season is a week.
Okay, good news, though.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, if you're still going.
What do you mean if I'm still going?
And in terms of the structure of the season, who do you think will benefit more in terms of club or country? Or is the idea that both will? Or can you see it falling on one of those two?
If from an England point of view, I'm not sure.
Because they're now talking about resting players during the autumn internationals off the back of Lions tours and things like that. Is the international game being squeezed by this a little?
Yeah, I think that's great in principle. Let's rest them there. Is it going to be written in, or is it an agreement with Eddie and your coach saying he's played a lot, can you not? Because then if the coach has injuries, unless it's legal, then he's just going to play the guy. So, I'm not sure. I'm not sure on how strict the agreement is.
Watch this space. I suppose the other thing is that with the season going longer, we're going to have more summer rugby, or certainly more rugby in better weather. And for a spring lamb like you, who likes skipping about in the sunshine, is that a benefit?
Well, I've got two views. I think we should have more time off around Christmas. I just don't think there's any need to play. I think we should have literally a week or 2 weeks off around Christmas.
Because they used to do that in France. They shut down for 2 weeks, but then they saw the viewing figures and the crowds that their Premiership were getting.
Those derby games.
Put those games on. Yeah.
Those derby
big
games
game.
are brilliant.
All I want is Christmas.
Yeah, it's nice over Christmas.
And
a lot
second
of those
thing is,
to look forward to.
100% professional rugby should be a summer sport.
Really?
I honestly, I've been saying this for years on my social media, and
no one's listening.
About five of my followers agree. I've only got 10, and I reckon it should be some sort. Everyone talks about wanting to play expansive rugby and wanting to play, great rugby. I don't think anyone wants to play in the.
So would you run like Super League from February to October?
Yeah, whatever it means, where you don't have to play in the mud and the rain and the hell and the cold and everything else. And then people said, "Oh, listen, lower levels and everything else, the pitches would be too hard." I was like, I don't worry about the lower levels. They can do whatever they want to do. I just want to play in the summer. And I think every stadium should be like that stadium in Dunedin, the one with the roof over it. So forget these 4G pitches.
Bar.
Forget any of that like 4G pitches, all that nonsense. Summer sport, decent stadiums like that. Forget the rest of it. And Haskell for president, yeah.
The campaign starts now. Yeah. The other just interesting little nuance as well is the fact you think about those teams in the Premiership who always steal 3 or 4 wins in the Six Nations and the Autumn Internationals when Leicester lose half the team and Wasps lose half the team. It's going to be harder to hide now, isn't it, if you know what I mean, in the Premiership?
Yeah, I wonder if England players will become more valuable because now you can use them more. But definitely those sort of teams that always target those areas are now going to have smaller areas to target.
Yeah, interesting. We shall watch this space, I suppose, and see where we end up with it. But certainly interesting times, and I think probably a good thing that they have found a structure at least and are going to push forward with it. Is that a fair point?
It's been going on for such a long time, isn't it? There's been so much to and froing as to what was going to be done, and I think the very fact that they factored in those respite rest periods is positive. Again, we never know how any of this stuff works, and luckily it's people way above our pay grade who make these decisions. I just think my only caveat to anything is that a lot of these things need to be set in stone and agreed, so there isn't that indecision, because everyone will try to bend every rule they possibly can. And I think from a player's point of view, you don't want to have that pressure, and also from a player, you don't want to be able to turn around and say, "Come on, coach, put me in." Rest is sometimes what's needed.
Yeah, we'll wait to see what the international calendar does as a result. Lots of speculation around a summer and an autumn competition, and all linking up. And,
Did you
and
like
points
summer
and
sport?
prizes.
He just glossed over that, but would you like it to be a summer sport?
Yeah.
I think we could.
Ball's easier to catch, isn't it? It's not wet.
100%.
Jouer.
I'll probably wear more caps.
Possibly.
Possibly.
Quick.
How many caps have you had?
Yes,
Yeah.
more than me. On that bombshell.
You're not Jeremy
English
Clarkson.
arrogance.
Yeah, there you are, you see.
You're not Jeremy Clarkson. Stop saying bombshell.
You're watching the House of Rugby on Joe, together with Guinness.
As we mentioned at the top of the show, Hask, we have another challenge for you this week. We are putting your art skills to the test. And when we say go, as part of the 119.5 second perfect pool, you don't need to do it now, but you need to have a little think about it. You are going to draw us an iconic moment from the history of rugby. Don't tell us what it is. Nick and I have to guess what it is that you are doodling. Have a little think, and we'll come back to that a little bit later on. But we're going to move on, because obviously the international squads were announced this week for the autumn internationals. We're going to touch on England in a moment. But first of all, I do want to pick your brains on Scotland, who have had quite a flurry of activity in naming their squad last week. Gregor Townsend has certainly been busy, or certainly his head of recruitment has been. Blade Thompson, New Zealand and the Scarlets. Sam Skinner, England and currently with Exeter. Sam Johnson, brought up in Australia and with Glasgow. What do you make of the recruitment policy of Scotland? How clever are they boxing?
Very clever. No, I really like it. They've only got two big teams up there, as it were, to pick from, so they need to try and cast their net as far and as wide as possible. The Blade Thompson, very good player. I've watched him play quite a lot. Sam Skinner, I watched him at under-20s level, and now he's broken in Exeter first team. Very, very good players to get in the setup. They spoke to Johnny Williams when I was coaching him last year, maybe 18 months ago. So they were into him quite early as a 19-year-old who just finished with England 20. So, who knows who else they're trying to get in. But they'll have a successful Exiles program where they'll try and tag as many people at a young age as possible to make sure that they know who has any sort of Scottish heritage, and then just track them all, keep an eye on them, see who they can bring over to then make Scottish by getting into their teams. And they're thinking outside the box, and they're working hard to increase their player base.
How big is the team that is doing this reconnaissance, as it were, do you think? Is it one man and a laptop, or have they got people in every country on the phone?
I'm not sure. I mean, someone like Greg has probably got a lot of friends throughout the rugby world, and if anyone knows a Scottish player that's half decent, I'm sure they get in touch with him.
I'm Scottish qualified.
Are you?
There we go.
I actually found out I was Irish qualified and I'm Welsh qualified.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah,
But England were the lucky
How many caps do you
beneficiaries.
think you'd have if you'd have gone with each country?
Oh, I don't know.
English arrogance, 150, isn't it?
Yeah. That is such an on-the-spot question, because you've got to mug off all the players who play for the country.
Yeah.
No, I'm very happy with England, and I'm very lucky to have 77.
answer, good
And according to some people, very lucky to have even got one.
Oh, come on. You've done very well to get to 77. And hopefully still counting.
Thank you.
Still
We'll
going.
keep it there. What do you make of I suppose, because England have done it in a similar way, perhaps not to the same extent as Scotland, who actively set out to get project players. But are you a fan of the ability for players who perhaps haven't cut it in Blade Thompson in New Zealand getting the chance to play international rugby overseas? Or do you think it is country of birth? Off you go, there's a hot potato.
Yeah, I mean, I used to think it was all about, letting anyone have a go if they were qualified and everything else. Now I've lost my place to a couple of people who are English qualified.
They are English qualified,
but they're not English.
Yeah.
Maybe we can change the rules.
Right. Bit late now.
It's a bit late. The horse is bolted. No, I think, listen, if you fulfil the criteria, then you should have every opportunity to play. To play for whatever country you want to, if you can do that. I remember, John Hardy I played with him at the Highlanders, and then he sort of went off, and then next minute he was starting 7 for Scotland. So I think
Hand on heart, were you irritated by the Brad Shields thing this summer?
No. Genuinely, I know everyone will go, oh, you would, but no, not at all. I think that every player's desire is to play international rugby. You know, I've said it time and time again. For all the kind of bravado and bluster I come out with, my sole objective every day is to try to be an England rugby player again, and to experience it. You know, it was my dream when I was a young player, and now, you know, as a slightly more senior player, it still burns, you know, as bright as ever. And I know what an honour and privilege it is, as does Kendo. And I think that, you know, I think any player who gets to sample the opportunity for whichever team they want to play for, to get that moment to put on that jersey, all the heritage that goes with it, to then run out in that stadium, to sing the national anthem, to feel the hairs on the back of your neck go up, to stand around and go, do you know what? I am the best in my position in the country at that moment is as intoxicating as any drug. And I think if, you know, Brad came over here and, you know, deserves the right to play for England, then let him play.
Okay. Just very quickly on Scotland, how excited would you be if you were a part of the setup and a fan? Obviously with Sean Wayne joining up from Wigan as well at the moment. Do you feel that they're building something quite exciting heading to Japan?
Yeah, definitely, and especially the way that they're trying to play the game, the way that their club teams are playing the game. Again, we spoke about outside-the-box player recruitment and coach recruitment, going over to Rugby League and getting a guy like him who's won 5 trophies in 6 years. You know, he's gonna add a lot to that setup.
Okay, taking off Scotland, back to England, leaping about a little bit, keeping you on your toes. Injuries in the back row, which we've touched on already. Don't snigger.
Sorry.
Ben Morgan or Zach Mercer at 8? Or another?
It was interesting. Someone was actually sitting down and asking me about this. I don't know why, but they were having a chat with me. I looked at all the different permutations. I think the interesting one's going to be, you know, Marrow. What happens with him?
Well, we're going to come on to that.
But, okay, sorry.
If you could answer the 8 question first.
Sorry. I mean, I think.
Does playing Marrow at 6 change who you'd have at 8?
I think so. Yes.
Okay.
I think
so. Would you therefore put Marrow at 6, or would you play him in the second row?
I think if you, I mean, I need to look at. I mean, it's difficult. You definitely have got a Courtney in there. Obviously, Launches is out. I think maybe you want to put Marrow in the second row and then have a slightly different back row. I think Tom Curry's probably going to start at 7.
Yeah.
I would have thought. Then do you put Brad Shields at 6, but he's played 8 a number of times, or do you put Morgs at 8 and then have. Shields at 6. I think you've got, depending on that makeup, allows you to then play Zach Mercer, because Zach Mercer actually does hit above his weight. He does carry, well. He is physical, and I think just because people are based on believe things on appearance, if you look at the amount of carries he gets and everything else, he actually carries well above his size, and is physical. So I don't know. You probably go with Ben Morgan for the opening game just because of the experience, but you need to then give Zach that kind of exposure.
He is a very confident young guy, Zach Mercer. I imagine he will take to it like a duck to water. I asked a question, you answered with a lot of questions.
Yeah, sorry.
Same question to you. How would you configure the back 5 of England's pack for South Africa?
I actually agree with Hask. I think first game.
Someone call the
first
media.
game, I'll go with Morgan at 8. And then I'd definitely get Mercer some game time and build it up throughout. And I'd definitely give him a start. Is he going to be good enough for the World Cup? And that's what it's all about now, isn't it? It's finding that team for the World Cup. So there's no point in having him on the bench 4 times, giving him 15, 20 minutes. He needs to get some good game time to prove everyone that he can do it. And then he could get the Six Nations and go on and be our man at 8 for the World Cup. Because he has that potential. Yeah. Because he's got serious ability.
You could go again. I mean, you could go again and went, actually, I'll put, someone like Sam Underhill at 7. I'll put Brad Shields at 8. And you put maybe Marrow at 6 and have Courtney in the second row, and there's Stuke in there as well. I think people get very obsessed with what numbers are on people's backs, and I've said this for a long time. It's down to balance. You've got to have the skill sets that's balanced, and I think Eddie's obviously changed a lot about what England are doing with their attack. They're working on obviously a new system. They've also got John Mitchell coming in defensively. He's obviously I've not had any experience with him, but I would assume would want England to be a very physical defence, and they need to be able to have that, especially against the likes of South Africa and New Zealand, and Australia as well. I think it will be interesting, but it's going to come down to balance, and I guarantee Eddie will already know what he wants to do. But I would just purely for this first game go with Morgs, because he has that little bit of international experience. He's been playing well, and I think you then introduce Zach Mercer. But Zach's been around the squad a long time. He won the lottery and got to share a room with me in Brighton a little while ago. It was a bit of an eye opener.
Go on.
Good. No, it was very, very nice actually. Did
you make the beds and make your tea?
No, we didn't have a tea set in the room, which is most disappointing. No, he was very good actually. We had a few chats. Nothing of any life-changing. Well, nothing for me that was life-changing. Maybe for him. I
Been there, done it, got the
gave him a
t-shirt.
copy of my signed book. Good luck with your career. I didn't really. I did actually.
Yes, you
No,
did.
he's a lovely guy, and I think he's got huge amounts of potential. And I just think, again, people do get obsessed by what someone looks like body-wise, as opposed to the way they do things. And I've certainly seen the way he's played for Bath, how many metres he actually gets, how often he gets onto the ball, and that's what you want in your 8, to consistently carry. Because if you look at the way Billy carries, he has so many involvements in the game that he might not be the same. Zach might not be the same size as him, but he certainly does that.
Marrow at 6, Marrow in the second row.
I don't know. I'll have a chat with him.
Find out what he wants to do.
All right,
I wonder if
friends.
it's
Rugby
relevant.
friends. I'll pick up the phone. Marrow. Marrow, it's Kendo. Who? It's Kendo. You've seen me at Saracens. Who, mate? Sorry, I don't know. Who are the other second row options?
That's a good question.
That's why I
Obviously,
can't think of Courtney, but I can't.
Courtney,
Cruz.
Launchby's out, George Cruz would be the other one. So you
See,
could have the Sarries pairing.
No, but you could go with Courtney's got to play because I think he's been on fire. I think since that just before the Lions tour, he's obviously always been outstanding. But for me, he's turned himself into an incredible ball carrier, as well as the devastating tackler that he is. I think you can play Cruiser in the second row, put Marrow at 6, then you either have Morgs or Mercer or Shields at 8, and then.
Yeah, nice.
It's all down to balance. But I think Curry's kind of been the one in favour, actually. But I know Sale haven't been doing that well, but, he did go well in those games in South Africa. I thought he was probably one of the standout forwards. So,
We shall see. A couple of interesting talking points. Harley and Farrell co-captains. Comfortable with that decision?
Yeah, there's quite a few teams doing it now, aren't there?
Yeah.
Over the last year, splitting the work, splitting the responsibility, the decisions. Yeah, I don't mind it.
Who'll do the toss and lead them out? Well, it doesn't really matter, I suppose, but...
I think probably Dylan would do.
Yeah.
I think Clive Woodward's going to be gutted now because his favourite argument point is that Dylan comes off after 50 minutes. So now there's 2 of them. It's a bit stuffed, isn't it? Now I've got 2 captains. What's he going to say? I don't know.
He'll find it out. He'll probably call for the Hask. The return of the Hask.
He'll never
will
do that.
Never see that in print.
Sorry, speaking of Return of the Hash, do you remember when you leaked the story to the Daily Mail?
Oh,
You were coming
yeah,
back
do you remember
in.
that? No, this is the worst. This is the biggest stitch. I'm so glad you
No,
remember
this was fact.
This is not fact. This is not fact.
This was fact.
So we played in the Autumn International. So the Autumn
Just for
Internationals
the
went on,
Ireland
right?
game?
No, it's for South Africa. For South Africa, right? So I basically I hadn't played in the first 2 games, right?
And bullied a bit.
Well, you said that, not me. Right, we got bullied a bit. And said Kendo, quote, 2018.
English
arrogance. English arrogance again. And playing against South Africa, and basically I was... Jono had called me in on a Monday and said, listen, we're going to put you in the team this week, right? But don't say anything about the team, right? Next day, Daily Mail, boom, the team's been released.
No, it was a double pay spread. Haskell comes in to beef up Pack. Massive headline. The team hadn't been announced properly yet. And then Martin Johnson, in the morning just before training, the whole team come in. He's got old school flip chart. It's not even on a presenter thing. Flips the team over. And then he starts going mad, saying no one speak to their effing press. I cannot believe this has happened. And as he was looking at everyone there, he was whacking the board like really aggressively.
He was like this.
And he kept pointing at the number 6, Haskell.
He was like
going,
this.
some sea bombers, you told the bro, and kept whacking the name. So we all saw he was literally pointing at Haskell, and we're all pissing ourselves laughing.
I honestly, he literally took me to one side and went, listen, Hask, obviously we wanted to keep the team under wraps. Did you tell anyone? I said, I swear on my life I didn't. He goes, did you maybe speak to your dad? And I was like, no, I haven't told him. He goes, if he told someone, it was literally getting ridiculous. He literally did not believe that it wasn't me, and subconsciously was underlining and reinforcing my name the entire time. So everyone was calling me the mole, and I didn't sell him out because I wouldn't have done it for free. So
Was it you?
no, 100%. I would never do that. I think it was every England side's always got leaked. I think I know exactly who it was because they don't get leaked anymore. And
And you're not there anymore.
and I'm not there. Yeah. No, I'm not naming names on it. I know it will send this rating through the roof, but I've got something.
That would be good. That'd be good.
Yeah.
Ashton and Tuolangi both looking promising. Tuolangi
Really?
certainly starting.
Yeah, why not?
The other thing I want to ask you about is Eddie Jones getting booed on the big screen. Was that just circumstance? It was Jerry Nathan Hughes who was booing Eddie Jones, or is that just show the scrutiny he's under at the moment?
To do with the Christian Wade thing, wasn't it? And Christian Wade not not potentially staying in the country, not getting picked, never getting anywhere near it. And I think the reason is because that carrot just isn't there for him to go on and play. And then all of a sudden he's at the Wasp ground. They're focusing in on the Wasp players. Christian Wade isn't there.
Yeah.
And then they started booing Eddie. But I've got no time for it. They shouldn't be booing Eddie.
A bit pantomime, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We've got to get to the Guinness perfect pour in just a moment, but a couple of words. You've spoken to him, Christian Wade, this week, haven't you?
I have.
Is he in the States?
No, I think he's in Coventry.
Right.
That's not like a metaphor when no one's talking to him. He's actually in Coventry.
Is he keen to go? Have you ever spoken to him about it in the past?
Yeah, I have spoken to him about it because I think every rugby player's dream is to go and play in the NFL. Well, certainly mine was. I when I got to about 24 before I went to Stanford State, I thought I'd love to be a linebacker.
Did you ever have conversations?
No, I didn't have any proper. I mean, I did look at trying to get an agent and have conversations with people about that, and did meet with a couple of people. But then I realised I was old and slow, and it was never going to happen. But
it's a hell of a long shot, even if you've grown up playing it. Has he got what it takes?
I believe he has. I mean, obviously that's just an armchair pundit's view who knows nothing really about NFL other than what I watch. If he does decide to do it, as I said, he didn't confirm that with me. I hope he does. I hope he goes on and makes absolutely millions and millions of pounds, and then takes me out to dinner and finally buys me a drink.
Cash back. It is time for us to move on to our perfect pour together with Guinness. You have 119.5 seconds specifically to draw an iconic moment in rugby. Nick and I have to guess what your masterpiece is. Are you ready?
Yes.
Your time starts now. It's obviously a very pictorial game, so I'm going to...
Is that a cupboard?
It's the letter H. So we've got a set of posts.
Johnny Wilkinson drop goal.
Oh, my Lord, stop the clock. Stop the clock. It's a beautiful work of art. Kendo, thank you for spoiling the game. Where were you in 2003 when Johnny dropped the... No, it's perfect. It was quite a good game.
I was actually still at school, and I came home for the weekend and was at my friend's mum's house.
Were you?
Just watching the TV in the morning because it was an early morning game.
Tears?
No, it was more inspiring than anything. I just remember seeing it and I thought I would love to be part of that, because that was, for me, it was just such a life-changing moment for everyone involved. And it was so unbelievable that it kind of inspired me, and I thought I'd be keen to do that.
I thought what you were going to do here is you running into the post pad. That's the most iconic moment in
Genuinely,
sport.
that was what I was thinking of doing.
Right.
But then I thought, I don't want to make everything about me. I don't want to make this whole thing about me. Every answer's like, well, what I would have done. Do you know what I mean?
It's quite a work of art. It's Picasso coming through very nicely.
Thank you.
There.
New feature.
Done there. Where were you in 03?
Marlow Rugby Club, watching that on a sofa in a packed Marlow Rugby Club.
Yeah. Great days.
That was brilliant. Yeah, absolutely loved it.
Remember. Was Johnny still at Toulon when you went?
Yeah, he was our captain.
He was your captain.
Yeah.
Because we were
talking English and then French. He was
amazing.
brilliant.
We were talking last week about how important he was, and obviously you had a role in this as well, in everything that Toulon achieved, and that almost is made more stark given where they're at now. I mean, can you put your finger on what it was about him that enabled Toulon to do a hat-trick of titles?
I think for me it was how humble he was, how hard-working he was, and he was the biggest superstar amongst a load of superstars. And if Johnny was going to stay and train for an hour after training, get there early, do all the extras that he did around his diet and training, then he set the standard. And there was no one like, I'm on the big money, I'll get in late or I'll do my own thing, because Johnny was the ultimate role model for everyone.
Yeah.
After every team run, we'd all get on the bus, shower change, eat, get on the bus, and he'd still be kicking. And then he'd bring his own lunch, just so as soon as he'd finished, got what he wanted. In French, in France, the way trips are horrible. You're on the bus for like 10 hours.
Yeah.
So everyone wants to get going. And if it was anyone else getting on the bus that late, they'd be destroyed. The abuse would be unstoppable. But Johnny just gets on, no one says a word.
King Johnny.
Finished, Johnny? Yeah. Then he eats his packed lunch. He was brilliant.
I want to ask one
Quickly.
thing, though. Sorry, just want to ask one thing. Do you think as well that his organisation and the fact that kind of bit of an Anglo-Saxon approach, with the other international players that they had, they were used to structure, because there was so many internationals in that place run by Johnny. The organisation was such that they were able to put a game plan into place and execute, as opposed to what you see now, which is a lot of individuals that don't kind of have that straight line thing, where it's just the flair, the jouet and everything else, and people resort to type where they all try as individuals as opposed to being a team.
Yes, definitely. And that was Bernard Laporte as well. Very structured. Come around the corner once, come around the corner twice, or come around the corner 3 times.
Surprise me. You finished your picture. Hold it up to the camera.
I think that's better.
It's not bad, actually. War, Gregan, all trying to charge it down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No one got near.
No one got near. I was going to draw like Dawson, just doing a little dummy, but I thought you pretty much got there.
Right. If you're bored in the office this week, you can send in your own iconic moment using hashtag House of Rugby. Let us know what you think of Hask's drawing. Limited, but certainly very effective. Thank you very much, Steve, for doing that. And bonus points, obviously, for something other than Johnny Wilkinson's drop goal. You've signed it.
Oh, that's available for 500 quid.
We can even put them in frames around, like
It's going
Art
to charity.
Attack.
I promise it's going to go to charity, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, actually, we never got into your videos.
What
for
videos?
charity. The old 80 quid a pop.
Oh, yeah, bring that up. Good. Okay.
No, we haven't got time. We'll leave it there. We'll leave that there. We'll leave that for another one.
Some bloke a weasel, he got really upset and wrote to me. Goes, I was like, shut up, mate. No one cares what you think.
No, good. We're friends with all. Thank you very much, Steve, for everyone for tuning in again this week. Please do leave your comments and your feedback as well. Just a quick plug. If you haven't listened already, do tune in to Andrew Trimble and Barry Murphy's companion show of ours. That one is out every Monday. And we've got a new feature this week as well. Hask, you have got a question for Andrew Trimble, which he's going to answer on the show.
Okay, here goes, Andrew. Is it true that you have a secret Instagram account that you set up purely just to call me David Brent?
In what year did you eat David Brent?
Eat David Brent.
Well, you are a sort of a larger, much bigger parody.
Mate, he's unbelievable. I just
He's
love
the man,
I
he's the
love
man.
the awkwardness. He is the absolute man. I wanted to meet Ricky Gervais. I drove past him once in Hampstead and he was having shouting to someone on the phone. And I thought, now's not my time.
No, it's not.
But I was like, there's Ricky Gervais. I love you, sir. I love you.
Good. On that note, that is it for us and episode 2 of House of Rugby with Joe together with Guinness. If you've enjoyed this, please do subscribe. Please do leave us your feedback and your comments as well. You can also watch the show on YouTube if you choose. Next week, we are back with myself, Hask, and Mr. Mike Tyndall. Nick, thank you so much for your company.
Thank you for having me.
Have a great week in the meantime, and we'll see you then.
You've been watching the House of Rugby on Joe, together with Guinness. Drink responsibly. Visit drinkaware.co.uk for the facts.